Chapter 5. After taking a comfortable bath, Su Fengnian took off his beggar's hemp clothes and straw sandals and changed into the rich family's clothes. He shaved off his stubble. In reality, Su Fengnian was a rather handsome and eye-catching young master. Among the 6 or 7 popular courtesans in Lingzhou, there was no lack of prideful ones who had extremely high standards. They were fighting for his favor not just because of the king of Bailiang's generous rewards. Although His Royal Highness often did unscrupulous things like spending money to buy poems, he was proficient in romance. He could play Go, talk about needlework, listen to zither, and watch dance music. He was a close friend who could warm a woman's heart. In the Prince of Northern Liang's mansion, which maidservant with slightly bulging breasts had not been molested by him. But in private, no one really hated him. At least, this young master was not the kind of person who would beat a servant to death, throw them into a well, or chop them up and feed them to the dogs. Young Master Li of Fengzhou, which was adjacent to Lingzhou, was the son of the governor who claimed to have grown up together with His Royal Highness. He liked to throw people into animal cages to be eaten. In comparison, the Wangfu was especially grateful to His Royal Highness. If there was anyone in the Wangfu who dared to glare angrily at Su Fengnian without hiding their hatred, it would be the servant girl, Jiang Enai, who was pulling away from the servant girls who were trying to curry favor with her with smiles. She entered Bailiang Palace at the age of 12. At that time, the Zhou state had just destroyed the insufferably arrogant West Chu dynasty and was the first to break into the palace. Unlike the great general who later set up camp into Huang City and enjoyed the women of the palace, Su Xiao was not fond of women. He was not interested in the concubines of the West Chu emperor. He did not even stop the chaste empress who followed the West Chu emperor to hang herself. There were even rumors that it was Su Xiao who personally gave her a piece of white silk. In West Chu, Jiang was the surname of the country and belonged exclusively to the imperial family. Therefore, it was inevitable that people would speculate about the origins of this young girl. However, following the destruction of West Chu, all kinds of speculations faded away. Dust was dust. Of course, Su Fengnian knew the secret identity of this maid surnamed Jiang better than anyone else. He glanced at the graceful maid Jiang Enai and raised his hand to signal the other maids to leave. When they were far away, he laughed and said, "What? Is Princess Taiping disappointed that I didn't die in a foreign land? Don't worry, I really don't want to die before I help you break the melon." "Princess, your chest is rising and falling more and more. I think you should be called Princess of Injustice." Jiang Enai, who was a princess in the past and was now a maid, was indifferent. She had a straight face and gloomy eyes. She couldn't wait to bite this lecher to death. Hidden in her sleeve was a dagger god talisman that was said to be worth 12 cities. If there was only a slight chance, she, who couldn't even bear to kill a chicken, would cut off Su Fengnian's head without hesitation. However, she saw a middle-aged man in casual clothes from the corner of her eyes. She had to resist the urge to fight with her life. The man was in his 30s. He was 9 feet tall and had a handsome appearance. He squinted his eyes all year round and seemed to be drowsy. He was one of the 6 adopted sons of the king of Bailiang, Zhuaxiong Yuan Zuozong. He rode a white horse and wielded a silver spear. He had never met a worthy opponent on the battlefield. He was definitely one of the top 3 masters in the entire dynasty. Some people even said that he was only 1 step away from the top 10 masters. Jiang and I didn't dare to act recklessly in front of this murderous god who was used to using people's heads as wine bowls. Su Fengnian shamelessly said before his travels, "I will only give you 1 chance to kill me. If you can't kill me the second time, I will kill you." Unfortunately, that year when she had just grown up, she had put on makeup and put on beautiful clothes to seduce him. After much difficulty, she had tricked him into bed. When they were intimate, she had stabbed him with a knife, but it had only pierced his shoulder. It had penetrated his bone, but it was not fatal. This fellow had only slapped her in the face. After getting dressed, he had said 2 sentences. The first sentence was, "Next time you won't be so lucky. Don't waste it." Your Highness, I finally see you. For the past 3 years, I didn't even want to eat or drink." A fat man dressed luxuriously ran over. To be exact, he rolled and crawled over. His face was covered with tears and snot. He looked very shameless. Jiang Ni's face didn't lose to Su Fengnian's disgust. Yuan Zuozong, who was the personal bodyguard of the crown prince, turned his head away. His eyes were full of disdain. Since this fat man was able to pass through the heavy defenses and arrive in front of Su Fengnian, his status was naturally extraordinary. In truth, he was just like the #1 brute of the Northern Liang army, Zhuo Xiong, the adopted son of the Pillar of the Great. His surname was Chu and his given name was Lushan, and he was one of the 3 dogs. Su Fengnian's snow-white spear falcon, the most handsome of the 360 winged insects, was trained by this fat man. He was more attentive to it than raising a son. This man had a bad reputation in the Bailiang army. He was a hypocrite and lecherous person. The first time Su Fengnian went to the brothel, he was the one who led the way. He always said that brothers were like hands and feet and women were like clothes. In the past few years, he would encourage Su Fengnian to sleep with his beautiful concubine every few days. He was really loyal. Can't eat or drink. Fatty Chu, why do you look like you have put on a few pounds? Su Fengnian sneered and strangled the fat man's neck. The fat man who was strangled by the neck shouted with a red face, "Your Highness, I have lost weight. I have lost a lot of weight. If your Highness doesn't believe me, I will go weigh it right away. If I put on 1 pound, I will cut off 1 pound of meat. If I put on 10 pounds, I will cut off 10 pounds. Su Fengnian loosened his neck and patted Chu Lushan's fat cheeks. He smiled and said, "You are indeed a good brother." Now, Fatty Chu, who had stolen the title of the Dragon General of the 1,000 Bulls, was being slapped on the face. As long as the person was not an official with a superficial title, the Dragon General of the 1,000 Bulls was one of the top officials in any province, let alone the Dragon General of the 1,000 Bulls who held the Tiger Seal for 3,000 elite troops. However, this fat man did not feel ashamed. Instead, he looked extremely honored. He leaned forward with his head as big as a pig's head and said with a smile, "Your Highness, I just took in a beautiful concubine. Her skin is so soft and tender that I can squeeze water out of her with a pinch. I haven't dared to enjoy her yet, so I've kept her for your Highness. Would your Highness take some time to come and drink some wine and listen to some songs first?" Su Fengnian nodded and said, "Sure, sure." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. They were as treacherous as they could be. As the saying went, wolves and villains colluded with each other. Just as Fatty Chu was asking about His Royal Highness's situation in the past 3 years, the King of Bailiang slowly walked over. There were several pillars of state in the dynasty, but there was only one pillar of state in the dynasty. He was second only to the General of Heavenly Strategies, who would only appear when the country was in danger. Su Xiao had been in the military all his life. When he was young, he would even take the lead in leading the troops. The previous emperor had even issued an imperial edict that he did not need to personally lead the troops. Later on, when he was fighting in West Chu, his left leg was hit by an arrow from Lu Shi, which left him with a slight limp. Su Xiao did not mind those people mocking him, but if anyone dared to criticize lame Su, they would definitely not rest until they were dead. The Marquis of Wu An, who had once fought alongside him against West Chu, had a trusted subordinate. He was young and impetuous, but he paid the price. Su Xiao casually found an excuse to behead him in public. His head was hung on the walls of the imperial city of West Chu, along with the heads of other famous generals of West Chu. The Marquis of Wu An was angry, but he did not dare to say anything. He did not even protest to the emperor after the incident. Su Xiao, with white hair on his temples, was not tall, and his appearance was even more inconspicuous. When he was middle-aged, he had a slight limp. Now, he was slightly hunchbacked, as if he was carrying the burden of 300,000 ghosts. Fatty Chu was an observant and alert person. He immediately restrained his expression and knelt on the ground. Although he was also an adopted son, Yuan Zhuozong had more backbone. He just bowed according to the common etiquette. The king of Bailiang, Su Xiao, gently waved his hand and let Chu Lushan take a stool to sit down. He tried to sit on the wooden couch with his son, but was kicked in the butt by the angry Su Fengnian. He had to awkwardly take a stool and sit aside. Fatty Chu was sweating cold sweat. He felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He did not dare to wipe it off. Yuan Zhuozong smiled knowingly. Su Fengnian whistled, picked up a piece of Sichuan brocade and wrapped it around his arm. He called down the spear falcon that Fatty Chu cooked. He took a glass full of grape wine and pretended to sigh. Little White, you have suffered in the past 3 years. You can't drink wine or eat meat. You were almost killed to be stewed. I am sorry." De Zhuguo was ashamed and kept sighing.